I would take this time to again publicly apologize for my hatred of the Michael Parsons pick.
How many? How many? How many? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hey, ha. All right, what did I get up to?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of How Many, the only podcast on the internet that counts. And we are the only podcast that will tell you how the Cowboys are doing 4 games into the season. That's right. Everyone else, we don't get any money from Jerry Jones. We don't get any money from the ticket. We don't get any money from ESPN. We don't get any money, period. I am Jesse Jackson. Joining me today is Junior, Bob, and Scott. Hopefully Gary here in a few minutes, but we will see.
I would normally consider this our quarterly report 4 games in, but with the new schedule,
I guess we could wait till the first quarter of the New York game, then everyone pause the DVR, jump on. And go. Poochie was over last night for the game. There is a lot to be happy about. Pleasantly surprised at this defense has seemed to be able to figure out how to cause turnovers. We've had interceptions. I realized the bar was very low on the defense, but so far, I'm pleasantly surprised at how they're doing.
Obviously, Diggs and Parsons are the standouts on the defense individually, but I think what I'm most impressed by, and we really saw a lot of this, especially in the Carolina game, is the pass rush. Seems like it's getting better every week. They've been consistently getting pressure. They're now really starting to consistently actually get there. It's without DeMarcus Lawrence. Randy Gregory is really starting to pay dividends. The young guys, OC or Osa, him and Golston, they got half a sack yesterday. They got a lot of pressures. And Parsons, every game, he's getting plenty of pressures. Yeah, the turnovers, that's the other thing. I think overall, obviously the defense is playing better, but I think there's definitely still areas to improve. They're still giving up a lot of chunk plays. Their linebacker play, other than Parsons, is still not great. Van Der Esch is okay sometimes, but Jalen sucks. He's terrible. So I'm hoping that we'll see some Jabril Cox as we get further into the season. Right now, they're getting to where they're okay to maybe even good. Diggs has been really good. Curse has been really good. Yeah, the defense has exceeded expectations.
I agree. I don't understand what was going on with Parsons. He was doing such a good job of the pass rush. Why didn't they pull him off of it? If there was somebody missing or if there was something that was evident in the scheme, the offensive scheme, I didn't catch it. I am impressed with what they're doing. I agree with Bob that I don't get how come other people's receivers are open across the middle so often, but I'm impressed. I think I said my comments at in the beginning saying, I have no idea what we have as far as defense go. What I'm seeing is like, hey, this looks impressive. And like Bob, I don't know that it is that they're great at this point, but they're certainly better than they were, and they're stopping when they need to.
well, to kind of address Scott's point, I think the difference in this last game in comparison to the Eagles game was we didn't have Randy Gregory. With him coming back for the Panthers game, that allowed Parsons to move back into that linebacker position. And I think that's really done to try and limit the amount of plays that Jalen Smith has to actually be on the field. I think whenever Parsons has become more of a full-time defensive end, it does help the pass rush, but it exposes the linebacking core a little bit more,
True.
Which obviously I think we all agree that Jalen Smith is a liability. I know you mentioned that it seems like people on crossing routes seem to be open a lot more often. I think a lot of that is a direct result of Jalen being responsible for that middle section of the field while the corners are kind of occupied. The less we have Jalen on the field, the better that defense is. Having Parsons as more of a roamer, blitzing from the middle, playing a spy role whenever there's a mobile quarterback, and then every once in a while maybe having him blitz on the edge. I think those are the kind of packages that the defense is looking to have more of. I think when Neal comes back, that's going to be expanded on even more. Like Bob was saying, the pass rush, for the most part, was doing pretty well, especially in the second half. In the first half, I thought a lot of their pass rush was very undisciplined. They were taking a lot of really looping angles to try and get to the quarterback, leaving huge gaps to allow Darnold to run. He had 2 rushing touchdowns yesterday. He looked like the second coming of Randall Cunningham or something. But in the second half, it looks like they made some adjustments. They had their front 4 stay within the passing lanes a little bit more, forced him to stay in the pocket more. And as we saw, the more he has to actually pass, the more mistakes he is prone to have. Like the people on the ticket were saying, he starts seeing ghosts. And those ghosts were in the form of Trayvon Diggs on back-to-back, interceptions in the third quarter.
Exactly.
Now, I was not happy with the way the fourth quarter played out. I thought McCarthy had a very, very bad decision coach, unless Diggs is hurt more than we think he is, by just sitting him out, player managing him.
Diggs said he had a stiff back.
If that's true, then I'll give him a pass. But if he was just sitting him just so he could get a look at some of the backups like Kennedy, that's playing with fire. Didn't take Carolina long to get within 1 score. That could have been a fireable offense had they blown that game.
One way to gauge how well the defense is doing is to check the trash index. How often is Chris yelling trash at the TV when the defense is playing?
Who's this year's Scandrick?
Trash. Trash.
He has been picking at Parsons saying, I don't know your name yet. I'm not bothering to learn your name till you see something. And he is now, after 4 games, like, okay, this guy's pretty good.
I guess the big question is he ready to make the jersey purchase? Because he jumped the gun a little bit whenever Mo Claiborne started his rookie year strong.
Right.
And he had buyer's remorse pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, I do think Parsons has done really well. I'm just candidly, I do not feel like you should put a lot of chips on the Gregory square if you're playing Cowboy Roulette. I feel like this should be bonus, right? Because we've been hearing forever like, oh, he's so good, and then he gets suspended. It is hard for me to put a lot of hope in him, and I see why. Yesterday's game was nice for it to see, but I just worry that he's teasing us again.
Well, the good thing is he can't get suspended again for the stuff that he had been getting suspended for previously. So
yeah, the NFL is giving more of a pass when it comes to weed. And that was his biggest issue. The problem is, I believe he's a free agent after this year. So if he does continue to impress, it will make him possibly too expensive for us to hold on to for another year.
Which means we have paid all this money to him when he sucked, and then he has a contract year, and then we're either going to overpay.
Well, he has been on a pretty cheap contract. I don't think we've ever actually extended anything beyond his rookie deal. Mm-hmm. So even though he has not played that many games due to suspensions and whatnot, he hasn't cost us too much from a salary standpoint. But I don't know that you want to make a DeMarcus Lawrence-like commitment contract-wise if he does end up having a good year. I don't know that you can afford 2 really expensive defensive ends. I'm hoping that he decides, because the Cowboys have been so good to him throughout his career, they never gave up on him. They did everything they could to help him, that he will return the favor by, signing a team-friendly deal.
Yeah, that would be nice, but I don't think so. Transitioning to talk about possible jersey purchases, Chris has been picking at me about, I just love Dalton Schultz. And then yesterday, he's like, all right, oldie, maybe hold off on the jersey because he had the fumbles, right? He said, maybe just get a T-shirt. Maybe just get a Schultz T-shirt, not a jersey.
His jersey kept falling off of the hanger.
Yes, exactly. So,
and Schultz is actually another one that is free at the end of this season. And I think he is playing himself into a pretty lucrative contract. We've already signed Jarwin to an extension.
Yeah.
And I don't think we will keep 2 higher priced tight ends. If Schultz continues on his current path, he will probably make a decent amount of money for another team, and we'll probably end up having to draft Jarwin's backup in the next draft.
It is nice to see 2 really solid tight ends, kind of heirs to Jason Witten. As the guys on the ticket were talking this morning, they have the benefit of our receiver core and our running backs that sometimes they're kind of left unguarded. and they're able to do some good. So let's talk offense. Scott, you start.
I was really, really, really worried about our offense in the beginning. That first game, I remember how often we were told, our chances are not good because, we had an offensive lineman that was out. And I was thinking, how can we be in that bad a shape that a lineman is going to be the determining factor of a game for us or not? But I'm like you guys, I've seen all of these weapons coming to the forefront. I love seeing Zeke actually pull the plug out and run the other night. That was amazing to see him do that again. I'm sold on Dak. In our past episodes, I've said, well, I wasn't sure, but I'm sold on the guy.
This is actually quite surprising because, Scott, you have been a
late
Dak
adopter
dissenter after that big contract extension that he signed. And you know what? To be honest, I was right there with him because Dak on his rookie deal was fantastic because he was a good quarterback on a very cap-friendly deal. But when you make him, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, then all of a sudden he needs to go from being a good quarterback to a great quarterback. And I think he has actually made that transition. So I'm a believer just like you now, Scott.
I definitely agree. I'm sitting there watching Dak. He makes some mistakes. It takes him a minute to settle down. Sometimes the passes hit the ground. Sometimes they're a little behind. But I'm sold. I think he is Super Bowl worthy.
Yeah, the biggest issue that we used to have with Dak, a couple years ago was his accuracy. He would miss badly periodically throughout the game. And now going into yesterday, he led the league in completion percentage and he's still second. I think he got passed by Kyler Murray, but he still got almost an 80% completion percentage. So that was like the weak link of his game. And he's picked that up.
And I don't know where he is statistic wise about average length of throws, but it feels like the eyeball test, it isn't like he just does dink and dunk. Yes, he does those, but he also can air it out a little bit. So it feels like he is able to do both and has been very accurate.
He has avoided making huge, costly turnovers as well. His touchdown to interception ratio so far this year is 10-2. That is fantastic, especially like you were saying, it's not just checkdowns all the time. He is taking chances downfield. And with that usually comes a lot of risk. Now, there has been some times where he has thrown bad passes and gotten fortunate that the secondary has dropped them or just misread his bad pass. But that happens to every quarterback. For the most part, he has not made any mistakes that have cost his team. And he has taken the step forward to be able to carry the team if the running game is not there to help him out. And those are the aspects that make a great quarterback.
What's the name of that Panthers quarterback?
Darnold.
Whenever I saw him throw long, I just went, whoosh, because he overthrew every single one of those passes. The guy was not accurate. He
had one, I think it was Robbie Anderson or something, that it was like, it would have been an easy touchdown. And that was like when they were making that comeback and he just completely blew it.
And the fact that Dak is making those, he's thrown somewhere only one of his receivers could catch the ball.
Yeah, that Cooper touchdown yesterday, that was perfect, exactly where it needed to go. He's gotten a lot better at reading defenses too. Like he really seems like he's mastering all aspects of the position. If he has a weak spot now, I think it's probably that he tends to hold on to it a little bit too long when he could throw it away. Like that fumble in the end zone against the Eagles, that was a good example of he just needs to get rid of it in that situation. But that's really the only thing.
Yeah, because one of the things that we talked about, and we weren't alone, it felt like Jason Garrett never got better. What's nice to see about Dak is it does seem he's learning and getting better in different phases of his game. He seems to be a really likable guy. We were all worried after being out a year, will there be rust? And the first 3 games, he was good, but like yesterday, as we're recording this, he scrambled multiple times. Didn't seem afraid of it, just like he was going. So I think that's a really good sign that he's ready to take his game to the next level.
I think he's a leader.
Yeah, his leadership. There's very few quarterbacks going right now who I think have a better command of the locker room and the team than he does. That's like one of his number one qualities. And like you said, Jesse, he's getting better. And that's the thing I think is also encouraging about the defense is they seem like every game they're getting better. That third quarter yesterday, that's the most pure enjoyment I've had watching the Cowboys since like the 90s. I mean, they were just on both sides of the ball. They were just clicking on all cylinders. If they just can get rid of that, what Scott was talking about, those passes over the middle that they just never seem to be able to defend.
Well, and let's talk about running back. And we've talked about this before. It doesn't seem there is an ego on this team. The receivers are happy, whoever is catching the ball. And I do think Chris talked about this. He felt like 2 games ago, Zeke ran especially hard because all that talk about on the second game, how much Pollard had done. And he was kind of, hey, I want to show you I still have a little something on the tank too. I think that's a nice 1-2 punch. And it does seem like Zeke is running really hard this season. You know, you talk about running downhill, and there were a couple of times, you know, where he just pushed that line and the pile 3 or 4 yards.
He's another one that seems to be getting better with every week in terms of his burst and his speed.
Yes.
And you're right. I think the Pollard thing's been really motivating, but there's no ego. You're absolutely right. There's not one guy on either side of the ball that it seems like they're causing even a blip of a problem in the locker room. That's really a good
How
sign.
nice is that?
It is nice to see.
And I think a lot of that ties back to Dak. I think everybody follows Dak's lead, and nobody is willing to rock the boat because everybody is pulling together because they really want to win for Dak. Like you were talking about with Zeke, I think the fact that he had kind of rededicated himself to getting back into shape is what is causing what looks like a resurgence. If I think he realized, okay, I need to step up my game to make sure that, you know, I'm going at the same level that everybody else is trying to get to in order for us to be successful.
And I think the Dak thing is really resulting in the team chemistry that you're seeing. That's the X factor that takes that talent and what they can do and takes it up to this next level where, they may actually be legit contenders. This team looks like they are in it for the long haul.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, you've been quiet. Yes. What are your thoughts on the offense? And then we want to hear your thoughts on defense as well.
If you're following Dak, which everybody on the team seems to be doing, he's a little like, for those of us that are Mavs fans, and if you're not, just go on mute and shut up.
Okay, Junior.
Dirk was like that. Like every year, especially early for that first 10, 12 years that he was in the league, Dirk was a guy that every year he came back and there was something a little different. His mid-range game got better. His passing got better. His rebounding got better. Finishing around the rim got better. It was always something. And Dak seems like he's that guy. Like he self-evaluates or other people help him evaluate. And then he works really hard at being better at what he wasn't good at. And when you combine his basic physical skills, which were already pretty high level to begin with the intangibles that everybody talked about from day one as a 4th-round rookie, being able to step into a huddle with a guy like Jason Witten and have Jason feel comfortable, those intangible skills that can't really teach anybody. And then the drive to be better. And I caught part of what Junior was saying a minute ago, and I completely agree. I think a lot of what you see with Zeke, because you hear so much about how Zeke and Dak are like best friends, like they're real buddies off the field. And I think it's not hard for Zeke to see what happened to Dak losing a year and how hard he had to work to get back. And truthfully, maybe he didn't have to work that hard. You have to work and rehab and your ankle has to get better and everything. But Dak's out there just killing himself to get back on the field. And I think when you see like somebody that's really close to you lose all of that and then realize, am I doing everything that I can? Like, am I working as hard as that guy's working? I think that's a big piece of it. I think that's what Dak brings to the offense specifically, because those are the guys that are out on the field together, but to the team as a whole, it's the way they go about their business.
I think you're right. And I was someone, when they promoted Calvin Moore to quarterback coach, I was incredibly unhappy. I was like, come on, this guy was just a player. We need a new voice. And I am here eating crow because obviously I should just take a can of shut the F up because people smarter than me knew. You're the one who said, right, when we did our preseason pick, Gary, that you would swap right now McCartney for Kelvin. Like, let's make him head coach and let's move forward. I am worried we're going to lose him after this season. I guess in a perfect world, we win the Super Bowl. McCartney says, okay, I'm out. Proved I can do it with 2 teams. Here you go, Kelvin. It's now your team. And I'm also I'm a little bit with Bob Stern talking about like, okay, we were tired of Garrett being casual. And so now then we're kind of giving McCartney a hard time. And after 3 wins, we're like, well, if he stays out of the way, we can win. That's a little crappy.
Okay, so first of all, I like McCarthy. Like, I don't want to make this sound like I don't like him. In the inevitable question of would I swap him from Kellen Moore, the answer is yes, because I think what we're looking at there is a little bit of Parcells and Sean Payton. And at this very moment in time, and at that very moment in time, was Bill Parcells the superior head coach to Sean Payton? Probably. So would Kellen Moore immediately step in and be an upgrade to McCarthy right now? I don't know that he would. Maybe, maybe not. There's some clock management stuff and things like that happened almost every single game. Questionable whether they call a timeout or don't call a timeout, or take the penalty and force them in 2nd and 27 instead of 3rd and 12. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, there are those every single game. So McCarthy's a long way from perfect, but in years past, if we lost 1 or 2 key players, this team was done for the year. They were done. And now you go out there without Leo Collins, without DeMarcus Lawrence, without Keanu Neal. All of those guys are starters and highest level starters. Without Gallimore, all these guys, and yet they're still cranking out wins. You go back to last year, they lost the entire offensive line twice. They were starting 4s and 5s out there without Dak Prescott, without a first string or a second string offensive line, with the worst defensive unit that this team's ever seen in its history. And McCarthy almost got them to the playoffs. Garrett couldn't have squeezed 6 wins out of that team. I'm not going to say that I don't appreciate what McCarthy has done, but I also think that when I look at it long term, I think about Kellen's relationship with Dak, with Dak's understanding of this offense as it is, because this is not a McCarthy offense. Is that the case if Kellen leaves? Because right now, Dak Prescott walks to the line of scrimmage with 25 seconds left on the play clock. He looks at what the defense is doing, and then he puts the team into a situation that is advantageous no matter what the defense is doing. Based on what we do, I'll put us in a play that, and it takes years to get to that level. And he's had years with Kellen Moore. Do we really want to start over with Dak in year 7 or year 8 with a new guy that comes in here and thinks, ooh, look at all the pretty toys I've got. Let me do this with my offense and we'll be even better. Well, Mike Nolan thought we were going to be even better. And we'll see how that worked out. My biggest fear is the scheme change. And I would rather have the young head coach and the youngish quarterback pull a Belichick and Brady and spend 20 years together than to have Mike McCarthy for 3 or 4 or 5 more years. So I would do the swap. Defensive side of the ball, Dan Quinn is a genius. He's knocked 10 points per game off of what we were giving up last year. This team scored the same number of points this year through 4 games as it did last year. And yet we're one late Brady drive for a field goal away from being 4-0.
And I know they've added some extra people, but a lot of that is the draft picks, but also he went and found people for free agencies. But this isn't like it's a totally revamped defense. His
scheme and the way he approaches things, he could have gotten more out of last year's players than we got out of last year's players. Now, Micah Parsons might be Lawrence Taylor, hopefully without the crack and underage girls. But his blueprint for success is so far superior to what we've seen for the last 5-10 years here. It's only going to get better.
This is old man talk, but they seem to be quicker. Like the old John Wooden, be quick, but don't hurry.
There's no confusion like there was last year.
Yeah, they seem to know what they're doing. They're going toward the ball. And as Aikman always talks about, he thinks it's dumb we rate defenses by yardage, right? But I've seen some stops. And in the past, we haven't seen stops.
Killing turnovers.
Yeah.
Manufacturing pass rush. You've got 2 rookies who are among the league leaders in pressures right now. And one of them is not even a defensive end. He's a linebacker that played defensive end in 2 games.
Another thing that Quinn's done really well, not only with Parsons, but like yesterday, Gregory's sack, they had moved him to the inside. They're even moving guys around out of their normal positions to get the best opportunity.
And that's only going to expand more once Lawrence comes back, once Gallimore comes back. I
It's
think
Armstrong.
they could even get something out of Twistin Hill.
Come
But-
on, baby. Come on, baby. Yeah,
There's not even a spot on this team for him. When he comes back, I don't know what they think they're going to do.
healthy scratch.
Because I don't know that he can be on the roster. When he gets to the end of his IR, they either have to put him on the active roster, which means cut somebody, or they have to cut him. And at this point right now, you're talking about OC, Odigizua, and Gallimore, Carlos, Watkins, Urban, and Bohanna. That's 5 defensive tackles. What are you going to do with another?
Yeah.
I don't think he's on this roster by the end of the year. They get him healthy and maybe trade him or probably just cut him.
Yeah, because he was a second rounder. I would hope they could at least get some kind of value for him.
He was what we would like to call a fringe second rounder. He's a Marinelli too.
Well, the good thing is we've had very good production out of 3 or 4 guys that we drafted, but there's another 3 or 4 other guys, corners, and then Jabril Cox. As the season progresses, we might start seeing more from them as well.
All right. Final thoughts, Bob.
Kind of to reiterate what I said earlier, I think they are getting better with every week. The defense is getting better every week. To my mind, the only weak link on the entire team is McCarthy, but he does have his positives. I think, like Gary said, keeping them together with the injuries, that Garrett would not have done that. I like his aggressiveness on the 4th down situations. It's just, like Gary said, week in, week out with the clock management and the not accepting the penalty and stuff like that. But the other positives are there. Zeke's getting better every week. We're getting guys back. And the schedule, the next few weeks, there's not really any team that should pose a big challenge to us.
Scott?
I'm excited. I look forward to the games. I don't walk into it going, well, okay, should we lose this one today? After this last week, I don't feel the fear of, okay, we're missing a key player, we're going to lose. I still worry about our defense, but shoot, they're stiffening up.
That's what she said.
They're showing stuff that I never thought we would ever see again. It's like I said at the beginning, I didn't know what we have. So I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm, because I know what the Cowboys can do to me, know how they can break my heart.
The good thing is a lot of the questions we all had going into the season seem to have been answered positively so far.
Yes,
so that's good.
Junior.
I'm kind of mirroring what Bob said. After the preseason, when we went 0-4, I had some concerns because we just didn't see enough of the key contributors at all. And we were kind of left in the dark. The only really visibility we had to the people that were going to make a difference on this roster was what we saw in Hard Knocks. I am blown away by how improved they are from last year. I think that they have not only taken another step on the offensive side, but they are showing that they can win in multiple ways. The Chargers game, we didn't score 30 or 40 points. We won that game scoring 20 and having our defense kind of bail us out against a very high-powered Chargers offense.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, I had imagined they were going to go, 11-6 and win this division. At this point, I would be disappointed if they don't do even better than that.
Yeah. Gary?
I would take this time to again publicly apologize for my hatred of the Michael Parsons pick. I didn't like it. All I can do is read. I'm not a scout. I don't get to talk to anybody, but I kept reading off the field stuff. And you only have to read that 2 or 3 times that'll make you nervous. This guy, he's the closest thing that I've seen to Lawrence Taylor. There's nothing that he can't do. He snapped the ball on offense. He played defensive end. He plays linebacker. Yesterday, he played all but 1 defensive snap, and his snaps were almost evenly split between linebacker coverage and rushing the passer. And yet, he was also still one of our best pass rushers, even though he only rushed a third of the time. And he's a rookie.
Yeah,
he's not supposed to know this much.
He's making impact even when he's not making the play itself. Like that Golston half sack was entirely caused by the disruption that Parsons got up the middle.
He's a linebacker version of Michael Irvin.
Now, that said, I don't blame Gary for being skeptical about the pick because in addition to all of the off-field stuff that we heard, he didn't even play last year.
Right.
The only film we had on him was from 2 years ago. But, man, like Gary said, he's proving us all wrong. I was skeptical as well with that pick. I wanted a corner, and now I am grateful that we got C-blocked on all the corners we wanted.
As a Cowboy fan, it is hard for me to get my hope up too high. But the reality is 4 games in, they're showing us something definitely on offense, showing us something on defense. Special teams were a little shaky, but they're getting better. And I feel like this team wants to prove something, and they have an energy and a quote unquote hunger that we haven't seen in a while. So I am very optimistic. I agree with all y'all. It is exciting on Cowboy Day, and they will lose a game that they shouldn't and will be, but the reality is we had said we want to see consistent good play, and we're getting that so far. So I am very excited. We will meet again roughly halfway and kind of talk about how things are going. In the meantime, Gary, if someone wants to reach you,
At @travel_cowboy on Twitter, since that's the only social media that works.
yes, indeed.
Yeah, especially after the Facebook outage.
Yes. Scott is at Scott_Matula. Bob
Lukewarm Tallboy.
Jr.
Metzgen_Jr. And then also we have the @HowManyPodcast Twitter, as well as Facebook if it's working today, and YouTube channel, all that good stuff.
And I am at Jesse Jackson DFW. Thank you so much for listening and downloading, and go Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys. We are the Cowboys.